When I first start a painting, I'm always really excited. At the beginning of a painting, I'm really just thinking about getting something down, getting some patterns going, getting some texture going. The paint is catching on the bits of paper that I put on for texture, and there's some of the paper is sticking out a bit, so it's catching on the paint, creating lots of different patterns. While I'm painting, I do go into a sort of meditative zone, which is very elevated, so my mood is very elevated. I feel very positive about the work. I feel energised, especially when I'm putting paint down in quite a rapid way. And then I feel very intrigued by what is happening in terms of the narrative. Most of the time I just want to keep that feeling of positivity going so that the painting evolves almost by itself. Because you're going into a state of meditation, it's almost like being asleep in some ways, because you're actually going into an automatic state. I think it's that interaction that makes the painting work. And I think if you're not in that flow, you need to walk away from the painting, come back to it another day, so that you're not controlling what's happening too much. It's quite hazy today. You can't see the hills very clearly. It's just really layers of greys moving up to more vivid blues in the skies. And the fluidity of the branches is just absolutely beautiful. Behind the trees, you can just see the sort of hazy landscape in the distance, but the golden peachy colours coming through is very inspiring. I love the movement in the branches and almost the sort of human forms that you can see coming through, and the light in the darkness is spectacular at this time of morning. I think narrative does seem to appear in my paintings, and quite often I'm not quite sure what the story is going to be. But are there going to be some people walking through the wood, or is there going to be a sort of procession? What's the story? The figures actually almost emerge themselves, and even if the figures are more defined, the painting, it sort of guides what those figures become to a certain extent. And so they take on their own life. The story is never clear, and maybe that's the nice thing about the painting, that whoever's looking at the painting can decide what's actually happening in the narrative. I love the idea that people interpret my paintings in a way that's personal to them. They play on the subconscious of the people that are looking at the paintings in terms of how they interpret them, and they probably draw on childhood memories or personal experiences to interpret the painting in their own way. So now I've decided that these are going to be a troupe of musicians. I can actually sort of maybe make them a bit decorative. They could have some interesting patterns in their clothing. Could be almost clown-like. The paintings that I find most rewarding are those that have happened kind of almost of their own volition, but also the paintings that are kind of verging on the abstract and are playing with that tension between abstraction and precision, or abstraction and definition. And I think that's what I find most exciting, that walking that edge between abstract elements in the painting and telling the story. The bath paintings I particularly like doing, because you've got that sort of curve of the bath in a bathroom, and then you've got pattern possibilities in terms of tiles and towels, and so it's almost like objects become these kind of props for maybe a kind of drama that's happening within the painting, and then the figure fits into that, and then you've got the colour combinations. So there's so many different things fitting in, but they're all to do with the painting itself rather than having any meaning in the painting, I think. So it's almost like finding out what these figures are actually doing, and then once you have decided, once you think, oh, they're actually playing music, you can actually start developing it then, but it takes a while to figure out what they're actually doing. When I'm conceiving of a painting, and I maybe have seen something that interests me when I'm out and about, what I see is I see the potential for playing with that image. What potential does that image offer in terms of colour combination? What potential does it offer in terms of some kind of textural experiment? What potential does it offer in terms of creating an atmosphere? All this potential is there for you to tap into. You have to have that sort of space to interpret things in an interesting way. I don't know how people are going to respond to my paintings. Looking at a painting is such a subjective experience, but I guess people who look at my paintings are bound to feel some of the things that I felt as I was painting. I think once the painting is out there, anybody who looks at the painting can form their own narratives, and that's really important, that the painting is made the possession of the person who's looking at it, and they can interpret it how they feel is relevant to them. It becomes their story.